Recording in progress.
Good morning, colleagues. I'm Nombali, or the content advisor. I just have a quick question.
Sounds like there's a party somewhere.
Will we join, Member Sheikh Imam?
Well, it seems like you're not at the party, sir. You're not invited, eh?
A bit early for that party, Imam Sheikh.
Yes, thank you, sir. How are you doing, Dr. Jacobs?
I'm good, yourself?
have the equal opportunity to ask SAHPRA and get clarity. The member spends more time attacking other members of this committee. Now, surely we are independent members of independent ask questions. Now, she can attention, Chairperson, but we are looking for clarity. These are matters that are raised with us by members of the community, by institutions and organizations. So if the member is out of touch with reality, it's not our fault. But she can't come here and spend 3/4 of her time, Chairperson, attacking us rather than dealing with the matter on hand, Chairperson. I think you need to protect us, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Sheikh Imam. Honorable Gela, you've heard what the member said. Please continue.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My apology if I offended you, Honorable Sheikh. But Chairperson, that will be my question. And I think SAHPRA, do what you have to do the right thing as SAHPRA. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Honorable Munyai, and there will be follow-up question by Honorable Ismail.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, esteemed Honorable Chair. I will comment to, based on the presentation, but also I'll raise some issues that will require this portfolio committee attention, attention going forward. And I'm sure the members of SAHPRA, they are both scientists and medical, they know what they're doing. They have the capacity to respond to the question that will be raised. Allow me, Honorable Chair, to say that in the advent of COVID-19 breakthrough, which indeed brought unprecedented consequences in our country such as, you know that there's been disruption and overwhelming of the healthcare system. South African government has, really has taken appropriate action, such as seeking vaccine on emergency basis. Esteemed honorable members and honorable chair, it is objective reality and truthful, so far as I know, that vaccine indeed protect our people against severe illness, hospitalization, and to some degree to protect our people against death. Esteemed honorable members and honorable chair, I think ourselves as honorable members, we need to continue to become ambassadors of healthcare. And it is very imperative, I repeat, if we become really ambassadors of vaccination. It is also very imperative that we build a broader front of vaccine champions in honorable members of parliament. And this broad front, amongst others, should include the state-owned entities, faith-based organization, community-based organization, to some degree NGO and the private sector, to make sure that we indeed get our people vaccinated. And I think, it is painful. Let me also say this, Honorable Chair, to say that really I wish to send my deepest condolences to KB Mapatse, Honorable Member KB Mapatse, who was also the president of the MKMVA before it was disbanded. So, but I don't think we need to use this passing on, Honorable Imam Sheikh and Honorable Chair, as a basis for vaccine challenges. Because if that found to be untrue, that could be really have some consequences to all of us. All I'm trying to say, let's allow the family to have time to mourn and not really use this public space to, because there could be some, I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not going to really do some passing on analysis, but I'm trying to say that it is very important that we give space the family to mourn. If really the family might find that is a basis of discussions, it may not go well with them. Honorable Chair, I want also to plead, now that SAHPRA is here, that in our next meeting, you find space that we have some discussion about the threat that have been posed against SAHPRA. And also even going forward to have a joint meeting with members of the security cluster so that those that are taking decisions are protected. I don't have to influence them as a politician because it must be based on science. But the fundamental issues, I have no problem of any form of the debate to try to make all of us aware on matter of science to empower us. That indeed I'll welcome. But I must say, it is important to make sure that we strengthen the autonomy or the independence of SAHPRA to do their work without fear or favor, but based on science. I'm not a scientist, but it's important that we are also educated through their response on the progress that they would have made and the challenges that we will face. It is important that they bring that to our urgent attention so that if there are areas of support or the areas of engagement that we need to take at a high level, we should do so, Honorable Chair and esteemed Honorable Member, without fear or favor. Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I'll be waiting really to, I also want to get to these issues. When we visited KwaZulu-Natal, Prof. Rees and Dr. Smith, we found that certain hospitals, which I think would have to refer this matter to you, they were not reporting some negative outcome or side effects to SAHPRA, and I'm sure they were reporting that to Center for Communicable Disease alone. We also advised them that they have an obligation to report to the regulator. I'll send you some contact through text after this meeting. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, for giving us this opportunity to communicate, to engage on the matters of vaccine and healthcare, and to get progress on the licensing of the vaccine. And some research that South Africa and the SAHPRA is doing both locally and also abroad. It is very important. I'm looking forward to get that the views that Honorable Imam Sheikh was talking about, of those science, to understand and to learn more. Because all I know, FDA has not supported that the issues of ivermectin, but I don't want to speak prematurely because there might be a science that those scientists that the Honorable Member want to put forward may help this committee. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, Honorable Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Munyai. We have two follow-up questions. I know that Honorable Ismail wants to raise a follow-up question. We just need to be mindful of time, honorable members. And then I see the hand of Honorable Sukacha, just to hear. Is that also a follow-up question, Honorable Sukacha?
You're correct, Chair. Thank you very much. You're correct, Chair.
Right.
Thanks.
So you will follow after Honorable Ismail, and then Honorable Sukacha, very shortly, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to get information for clarity. Does SAHPRA take any medical information from people when they go get the vaccine and then follow up on their experience? I think this is very important. And do you get any medical information before people get the vaccine to see if the vaccine can be taken with such medications? I'm asking this question so that it gives us a better, opinion. It gives us a better insight on what basis are you basing your actual report when you're giving us feedback. People tend not to go get vaccinated as they do not know the potential reactions of chronic medication that they are on. These are all questions we're asking for clarity and empowerment so that we can advise our constituencies thereafter. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Let me also welcome the presentation from SAHPRA. And just as a word of encouragement to say that I have noted that SAHPRA is respected worldwide, and therefore I'm very proud when they present a well-structured report and give us information, and let them stay and stick to their credibility, and that they should not be allow anyone to play with their credibility. I think they are doing a very good job. So just one point of clarity, the one was been asked by my honorable member Kela on the issue of, is there any application from Cuba? That was my interest. And then, Chair, just a point of clarity, I hope Prof will clarify for me the issue. How scientifically correct is this information that is going around? That when people are positive with COVID and they went for vaccination, they die. It's all over the show in our small towns, in the villages, that people are afraid to go and vaccinate because they are saying when you are positive and you went for the vaccination, it causes death. I just want to check with the Prof, has that been proved scientifically that when you are positive and you went for vaccination, it causes death? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, honorable members. Before I allow SAHPRA to answer those questions, I also want to raise a few points. I think we need to be absolutely mindful of our role as portfolio committee members. These, I'm going to say again, that these meetings are broadcast on national TV. And I am not saying here that any members are doing anything wrong. I have a great concern that the health of our people are determined by the messages which go out there. And now I'm talking about the anti-vaxxers. We're talking about the negative messages on social media. I am talking about, for example, a message that was received on social media about the cause of death of Honorable Mapatso. We do not know whether at this point in time, whether that is there is any truth in it. I am talking also about members of the health fraternity who also put anti-vaccine messages out there on social media. Initially, there was this huge writings by the media about COVID and speculations about vaccines, etc. I see there's at least a turnaround now where there is a positive approach to the messages which are sent out on media, printed media, and digital media at this point in time. I think the question that we really need to ask ourselves as South Africans is the following. What are we going to do to save lives in South Africa? If we can answer that question, then the questions which we raise even here as members of the portfolio committee would be based and would be aimed at supporting that answer, because that is the most important answer. The trajectory on which our country is currently and where this trajectory is taking our people in terms of their lives and their deaths. And I think essentially is the fact that we have vaccines. I simply take my approach, and this is anecdotal, this is what I think from having observed, and there are no studies to this effect. What has happened, excuse me, to our healthcare workers? Initially, with the COVID infection, so many of our healthcare workers had passed on due to the COVID infection. And now we hardly hear of any such cases amongst the healthcare workers. And we know that the healthcare workers have received the J&J vaccine. We're also aware that so many people of our society have received the Pfizer vaccine. And now we hear of 32 deaths, of which a point is raised that it is coincidental. I do understand that we need to get a better definition of what really coincidental is. At the level where we are engaging, we need much more clearer understanding, and I heard it being said by members of the committee. And so we will ask SAHPRA to share that information with us. There are also 2 deaths which have not been yet confirmed, and I also hear there are many questions asked about what are the studies which are being done, or what are the interventions which are being used in order to find the causes of death, whether there is a cause and effect relationship. And I think from what we are being told, what I hear the members are saying is that we just need more information. We need to be able to have more information shared with us. I myself do not have any questions because so many questions have been raised, and I just wanted to give that input for us as members of the committee to be mindful of what we say on a platform where it is televised, whether it is on national TV or whether it is on TV, the Parliament's TV program, that we are very mindful of what people will say and what the effects of our own words would be on the lives of people of South Africa. So before I see there's a hand up, and really I would think we'd want to move on after this, honorable members. I'm going to take only this one hand, unless it is an old hand of Honorable Munyai, and then I'm going to ask SAHPRA to please respond. And another hand going up, Honorable Sheikh Imam. Please, those 2 very shortly, 30 seconds each. Thank you.
Through you, Honorable Chair, all I'm trying to say that the concrete proposal made by Honorable Sheikh to have a scientist discussion at this portfolio committee, that I say without fear of any doubt that we must proceed with that process. We want a scientist, let's come and engage on the matter, because we should not be afraid. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think to a very large extent, you've covered me and Honorable Munai. We on the ground don't know much about this. People are confused. You are correct with all the social media reports and negativity around everything. We've all grew up with vaccines, although now there are questions about vaccines. And I think that discussion we're talking about, Chairperson, let that discussion unfold. That will give clarity to people, and I think it will convince people that yes, indeed, they are in the right direction. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
All right, thank you very much, honorable members. Professor Rees and Dr. Semeti, you are very welcome to provide your responses to the questions raised. Thank you.
Honorable Jacobs and honorable members, thank you very much for so many questions. And at the outset, I would agree that I think many of the things that are being raised deserve perhaps a more in-depth debate with many other role players here. Because I do agree with everyone that the kinds of questions that are being asked deserve clarification, deserve evidence-based answers, and we probably don't have time to do it justice. But I'm going to say several things which I think are really important, because as Honorable Jacobs has said, we are talking also to our public. So I'm the chair of the board of SAHPRA, and the CEO is with us, and she will answer some of the technical questions. Because I am a clinician and a scientist, I will also contribute to some of the technical questions that you've asked. But the first thing I want to say, and I know that we've said this before, but I really think it's very, very important, is that some of what is happening here is that the mandate of SAHPRA is getting confused with the mandate of many other entities. And I'm going to give you a little list of some other ministerial entities, statutory bodies who have very significant mandates in the context of this pandemic. So SAHPRA can only do what is within its mandate, and it can contribute, as we are doing here, definitely to the public debate. But SAHPRA is a drug regulatory authority. Pretty much every country in the world has a drug regulatory authority, because over the last 20 years, many countries that had either no drug regulatory authority or quite weak drug regulatory authorities have recognized how important this structure is. And you can see from the questions from the honorable members, everyone recognizes how important this structure is. But I want to remind us that before the pandemic came, SAHPRA has been regarded as one of the top regulatory authorities in the African region, in low middle income countries, and is recognized by the World Health Organization. It is so well recognized, it is one of the reasons that we are now going to be recognizing in the next week the fact that the country has been awarded a vaccine manufacturing hub, which includes a WHO assessment. And one of the reasons they listed is because we have a strong, independent drug regulatory authority. So that's the first thing to say, is that before the pandemic, I think hopefully most of the honorable members would recognize that we have a really good, diligent drug regulatory authority. Was it perfect? Certainly not. We had a backlog. We've discussed this with Parliament, and we're trying to rectify that. But what it did mean for the citizens of this country is that they have been able to go into a pharmacy, to go to a clinic, to have an operation, to get their child treated, and know that the drugs or the vaccines or the health products that they're getting are safe, are monitored by the regulator, and that they do what they claim to do. And that isn't true for many countries still in the world today, that you cannot rely on the safety of the products that are in front of you. If you can't rely on the safety of medicines, it means that when you need an antibiotic for an infection, you can't rely on that. And it means that you can't rely on the fact that the quality of the product is good enough so that it is safe. And it means that when you go for an anesthetic, you would not be able to rely either on the safety of the drips that are put in your arm or the products that you're given to put you to sleep. That is how critical a drug regulatory authority is. It is a pillar, it's a silent pillar mostly. Mostly people don't have to think about it. It's a silent but critical pillar of our healthcare system. And if we don't have an effective drug regulatory authority, all of those things I've just described can no longer be taken for granted. Now, in the pandemic, SAHPRA has had to roll up its sleeves like every other entity, like government has had to do as well, and do things differently, do things rapidly, make decisions on the hoof, and SAHPRA's had to do that as well. So we have set up special committees to advise the CEO on the decisions that are taken, special committees that are looking at COVID clinical trials, that are looking at COVID vaccines, special committees that are looking at other COVID products, special committees that are advising on the medical devices side, all dedicated to COVID and advising the CEO, because it is the CEO who takes these decisions and she gets advice from the best experts that can be summoned in the country. So it's not just her by herself or her with her very competent staff. It is her and the staff and a lot of really first-class academic experts who are really expert in their field. The board has oversight, but the board has also rolled up its sleeves and given as much support as we can to the CEO, who I want to put on record has done an incredible job during this pandemic, given that she was new and she was plunged into this. So the second thing I would want to say is, yeah, we've had to do things differently and speedily, but it is the same SAHPRA that we recognized as a country gave us safe health products, safe medicines, and safe vaccines before the pandemic. And the mode of operation has not changed. But we remain an independent authority. And you as Parliament have approved the legislation that makes the drug regulator an independent authority. And it's important that it's independent, because then it cannot be and should not be influenced by any consideration other than the safety, the quality, and the effectiveness of the medicines and the health products that are made available to the citizens of this country, all done with the public good and the public health good in mind. This is the same authority. We're not dealing with a different entity that was suddenly woke up one morning and has decided to behave badly. This is an authority that is an honest and an authority with a great deal of integrity. and it's an evidence-based authority. So that's the starting point. Now, having said that, I'm just going to answer some of I just want to just perhaps suggest something else, because I do think that with the pressure that's on everybody listening to the questions, there's some of the questions are saying, can you do this? Can you do that? And I just want to list some of the other entities that are either ministerial entities or statutory entities that are also working in this COVID space in the health sector to support the Minister of Health and the Department of Health. We've heard about NICEC. This is a ministerial committee looking independently at the safety of vaccines. We have a national essential medicines list committee, which looks at all medicines and vaccines that are put into the public sector and independently evaluates them for their effectiveness and their cost effectiveness as well. We have a national advisory group on immunization that looks at all matters and advises the minister on all matters to do with vaccines. They do not at the moment look at the COVID vaccines because we have a vaccine ministerial advisory committee to supplement and complement the NAGI. We have a vaccine ministerial advisory committee. We have a ministerial advisory committee. We have the MRC, our Medical Research Council, which is a statutory body, and our Health Sciences Research Council, similarly a statutory body, who are given a huge responsibility in coordinating research. We have first-class academics in this country, and I'll talk a little bit more about the genomics just now. But we've heard a lot about these variants emerging. That's an example of the quality of the academics. But we've also had, and the question was asked about vaccine trials. Indeed, we have some first-class vaccinologists, first-class clinical trialists. I think we're all familiar with the head of the MRC, Professor Glenda Gray, and Professor Shabir Mahdi, who has led, both of whom have led some of the clinical trials in the COVID vaccines that we're now looking at. And we have a Department of Health who has to take all of this together and make the decisions about which vaccines they're going to purchase, how they're going to roll it out, how it's going to be prioritized, but with all of this input and background. And in the event that people are not happy, we also have an ombudsman. So I'm sure I've missed out many things, but what I want to say is SAHPRA is just one part of this. Now, we would be very happy to come and have a further dialogue in depth, as honourable members have requested, to really sort of go into the science of some of these things. That wouldn't be a problem. And we can get first-class scientists and have a robust debate. That would not be a problem. But I think the problem is that we can't say to the Drug Regulatory Authority, answer everything, fix everything, do everything, when actually the Minister of Health and the Department of Health are the doers outside all of those fabrics that I've just described. Now, I want to now just talk about vaccines and just sort of really try and capture some of the questions, specifically on the science of the vaccines. And Dr. Sameti will ask some of the very specific operational questions that have been asked. So the first thing is that, as we know, there are very few vaccines in the world that are 100% effective. Many vaccines are partially effective, and many vaccines act by reducing the severity of disease or preventing symptoms developing, even if you have a low-grade infection. But 100% effective vaccines are a rare thing indeed. And similarly, none of the COVID vaccines are 100% effective. And the different vaccines that we're looking at will have different levels of efficacy. Importantly, for the vaccines that are in the most advanced stage, with all of the early clinical trials, all of these vaccines showed that they reduced severe disease, hospitalization, and death. Now, what's happened because of the emergence of the variants is that the efficacy of those vaccines, these variants are learning ways to resist our immune responses, whether it is from natural infection that we've developed immunity or from the vaccines. All of these variants are learning ways to resist that. So the effectiveness of all the vaccines has dropped somewhat, but it has not gone away. But every time we get a new variant, for example, the Delta variant that swept through, as we know, in our third wave, We then have to say, how effective are the vaccines that we've got that are in development against this variant? Because they might have been very effective right at the beginning, but their effectiveness could have dropped. And the bar that we've set for ourselves, and this is an international bar, is to say 50% effectiveness is a minimum that we would expect. But we also know that many of the vaccines, even if they'll reduce quite significantly still severe disease, hospitalization, they're good at doing that. They're not necessarily as good at stopping asymptomatic infection and mild to moderate disease. And that's one of the problems. And that's why we're saying, even if you have a vaccine, you can still get infected. The use of the vaccine is to stop that severe end of the disease. But you can still get infected, even if it's asymptomatic or milder. Please wear a mask. Because if you're infected, you can infect others. And there are many vulnerable groups out there, whether it's age or comorbidities, that you can inadvertently infect. But vaccines, and the question was, are we monitoring how vaccines work worldwide? Well, we certainly are. It's one of the most important questions. And Dr. Sameti will talk about it. But in South Africa, we have, led by NICD, MRC, academics, we are looking all the time at the effectiveness of vaccines once we roll them out. And we look at that in different ways. We look at how are they responding to new variants. We do that in the laboratory and look at antibodies, but we also look at what are called breakthrough infections. We say, when we see people in hospitals, are we seeing people who've been vaccinated being hospitalized? If so, what was the variant? Is it a new variant? When were they vaccinated? Are we seeing breakthrough infections because this vaccine or that vaccine is not as good at fighting off that particular variant? That is being monitored all the time. But in terms of sort of big worldwide messages, just a couple of things that I think we've all heard and observed, that in the US, they're calling now the huge numbers. They have the largest numbers of cases, the largest numbers of deaths in the world at the moment from COVID. And they're calling it a pandemic of the unvaccinated, because who they are seeing in the hospitals, who they are seeing dying predominantly are people who unfortunately have not received vaccines. Similarly, in the UK, they've managed, because they started early, they've managed to vaccinate very high percentages of their population, including high coverage of the most vulnerable, the elderly, the comorbidities. But they're also vaccinating very aggressively and testing very aggressively, and they've got their vaccination figures right up. They're still seeing cases. They're still seeing cases at a number, but they are not seeing the deaths in the way that they were seeing before they got their vaccination up. So now, one of the ways we're going to evaluate, we've talked about effectiveness, one of the ways we'll evaluate effectiveness is to look at what's happening in other countries and understand the effectiveness of vaccines. And some of these are the vaccines that we're using. And certainly with all the vaccines that we have approved, we will be looking and working with other countries to see what is the effectiveness. And WHO has committees that are looking at this on a daily basis and are giving global guidance. So the other thing, the other questions, some sort of very practical questions, and it makes me realize we do need to do such a much better job of communication. If you get the vaccine, if you have COVID infection, what is the current guidance from the Department of Health? The current guidance that is being given is if you have active symptoms and a COVID infection, don't take the vaccine during that period. When you have COVID infection, your own immune system is kicking in and it's trying to fight back. So you've got a lot of response in your immune system. If we give a vaccine as well, we're going to stimulate your immune system from two sides. And that could cause side effects and problems that we don't know. It just might make you feel, that your immune system's not is overstimulated. You might feel ill. It's not going to. There's no question that this is going to kill you in any sense, but it just might give you a huge immune response. So what we're recommending to avoid that is to say to people, wait for 30 days after your symptoms are finished, or after if you have no symptoms but have a positive test, wait for 30 days. And then have the vaccine, because by then your own immune system will be established, will have fought off the COVID virus, and then you'll have that immune system, then we could give the vaccine. So another question that was asked is, can you give the vaccine? In fact, it's really, really good if you've had a COVID infection and you've got natural immunity to have a shot of that vaccine, because that really will stimulate your immune system in a very effective manner. And it's quite safe to do it, and we're strongly recommending that people do get the vaccine after immunization. And certainly this issue of do people die if they're positive? No. The reason we say 30 days is just to avoid side effects that might be enhanced if you have a COVID infection and we give you a vaccine at the same time. But it's not about dying, not at all. There are no reports of that, and that hasn't been reported to my knowledge, and I serve on World Health Organization committees anywhere in the world. So that isn't the concern. The concern is side effects. And then finally, I'll perhaps comment on the first question, which was about the new variant. You know, we are very fortunate in South Africa that we do have a very active group of academics around the country who are monitoring these variants. So they are picking up emergence of new variants. So this C1.2 variant that many people will have heard of is the latest variant that has been detected. It was detected in May. It only represents about 2% of the current testing that's going on, but it's been detected in 8 of our 9 provinces. But it's also been detected in 8 countries around the world, from Europe, Asia, other countries in the African region, and the Western Pacific region. So it's widely detected, but it's not doing what, at the moment, what we have seen the Delta variant do, which is really take off, which we're all familiar with now. But the changes in this particular variant we've seen in earlier variants. And the concern is that some of the changes, the mutations that we see, suggest that this might be a variant that could be more transmissible or could be better at evading our immune system, at resisting our immune response. So that is why we're watching it very closely. But at the moment, we have not seen that it's been taken off, that it's taken off. But what we do need to do, and we have laboratories here in NICD and various academic institutions who are doing excellent work, for each variant that we see in this country, we will be testing the vaccines that we have against that variant to make sure the vaccines that we are rolling out remain effective. And then I just finally want to say to Honorable Jacobs, thank you very much for your last comment. I mean, you know, I know people are frustrated and you know, you can hear the frustration and the anger. But I think we're all in this together. And you know, SAHPRA is here to work with you as parliamentarians, to work with the Department of Health, to work with our communities. We want to save lives. That's what we want to do. And we're totally committed to doing that. And we're very committed to ongoing dialogue. So thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Professor Rees. Dr. Semete.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the members for all these questions. We do appreciate them because we also see this platform as a platform really that shares, you know, some of the questions that are on the ground. Some of these questions we have, you know, received as SAHPRA before, and so we're happy to engage. I mean, what the pandemic has highlighted is the need for us as a regulator to continuously communicate what it is that we do, communicate how we do what we do, and engage with the public. And so we thank you for this. But also, I think if I just touch on Prof. Rees' last comment, is that as a regulator, the safety of the public is paramount. So wherein we are made aware of any safety concerns, we do act on those. And so again, we will respond to the questions that we can today, and those that we would need to come back to, we're happy to do that in a written format. I think the matter of the variants of concern has been addressed. And just the point that I would like to mention is that we continuously monitor this, as Prof. Rees has said. But also there is a global community, it's called the ICMRA, wherein SAHPRA, as well as Nigeria, the 2 African regulators that are part of that, and we look at this data with other regulators. So we are part of the global discussions around these variants, around the safety of the vaccines. And so, you know, we are keeping abreast on these developments. If I could just reflect on, there were quite a number of questions around the safety of the vaccines, and Again, I just would like to reflect on this, and my colleagues, Posh and Dusang, may want to come in. This is an area that indeed is under our mandate as SAHPRA. But again, we don't work alone in this case. As I've indicated in the slides, NISEC is a very important committee that we work with. But also within SAHPRA, we have our pharmacovigilance committee that also has experts. And so we've put together, this group of experts that look at every single case. So for us to, come to a conclusion where we say it's coincidental, we've gone through a lot of information. And I'm really happy to, maybe the next engagement we should be having, Chair, is around just how we do the safety assessment. In the webinar that we did, we went through detail, and we even shared with the public the type of forms that need to be completed and the type of information that we require. You will also see this in our microsite, where we indicate, we need details of what other medication were these individuals on, what other ailments do they have. So it's a very detailed exercise that we go through. We look at the age. If I could just reflect on the ones that we have indicated that are coincidental, and in essence, what we mean is that their death is not related to them having been vaccinated. And probably 98% of these 30 were the elderly that received their vaccines quite early on in the rollout, when we were focusing on those who are 60 and above. And again, we've done detailed assessments. So we look at matters of the age of the individual, any comorbidities, any medication that they're on. And I'm happy for us to bring our colleagues, in our pharmacovigilance committee, as well as NISEC, for us to take you through a detail. I think that needs a separate session, because it's quite a detailed exercise that we go through. I think we cannot engage enough with the public around safety. We are very cognizant of the need for us to constantly engage. I've mentioned some of the webinars that we are planning, but also, we've reached out to some NGOs. I mean, as recent as yesterday, I was talking to one where we're saying, we even want to do this work and share these messages in our indigenous languages. I am of the view that that's where we also have a gap as SAHPRA. We have engaged, with the public through other local radio stations, but we're not doing it enough. And this is something that we will be focusing on as we partner with others to ensure really that we disseminate this message quite extensively across the country. So I will be the first to acknowledge really that there's a lot more that we can do and that we will be doing around communication. Thank you. In terms of from a safety perspective, also, if I could just reflect on this, is we haven't seen any specific adverse effects that you see in certain age groups. So especially now that we have, rolled out the vaccines and we've started now as a country from 18 years and above, and so we'll start to get that data, but we're not seeing any age-specific related. But again, these are aspects that we continuously monitor. I mean, the slides that I shared with you are really just a drop in the ocean in terms of the amount of data that we look at, the amount of analysis we've looked at from an age perspective. What are the types of reports that we're getting? And we're not seeing anything that is alarming and is a cause of concern at this point. Prof. Rees spoke around, being COVID positive and receiving a vaccine. So I want to comment on that. If I can then just move now to the questions around AstraZeneca. We received the application. I don't have the exact dates, and we're happy to come back to you in a written format. We received the application sometime in December, and the authorization was late in January. And again, as I've indicated, I mean, we would look at all the elements as per that, those 8 processes that are indicated. We looked at the manufacturing site, and in this case, it was the Serum Institute. It was a GMP compliant site. We didn't have any queries, so that did indeed fast track. If you remember at the time, the bulk of the data we had was around the original strain, which the applicants had. Remember also that in the country, this is one of the vaccines wherein clinical trials were conducted in the country. So we had that data readily available. And again, to demonstrate our commitment to the public safety is that the minute we took note that there is reduced efficacy on this, as was shared with us by the applicant as well as the principal investigator of the study, the country then made a decision to not roll it out. Again, another demonstration that we are concerned and the safety of the public is paramount. When the J&J batches were not compliant with good manufacturing practices, we again aligned ourselves with the FDA, and we were engaging with the FDA quite closely, as well as the European Medicines Agency. And the three of us agreed that these are not the batches that we should really release to the public. So as a regulator, we are of the view that we're able to make decisions in the safety of the public of South Africa, in South Africa. So in terms of AstraZeneca, I hope that I've covered the questions. So the questions was, when did we receive it? And when did we authorize it? Did we have enough information? And I've spoken to the clinical information that was then provided to us. If I could also just reflect on our processes, and indeed we made, we've agreed on the minimum requirements, but even in that we are stringent. I mean, the process that I've taken you through is quite a rigorous process. You've got other, countries wherein they will fully rely on a decision that is made by another authority or maybe by the WHO. In our case, we've said, because of the nuances that we're seeing locally in terms of this epidemic, the variants of concern, we will conduct an evaluation of every single dossier. So whether it is authorized by the WHO, which is great, we are able to consider their reports, rely on aspects of the reports, but we do our own assessment. So at a time, we've got evaluators that will look at the quality aspects. We've got evaluators that will look at the safety aspects, as well as the clinical efficacy aspects of every vaccine. So while we agreed on these minimum requirements that I've alluded to, I mean, for example, one of them is that the vaccines must have a minimum threshold of 50% vaccine efficacy. We've also articulated what is the minimum phase 3 data that is required, and that until we then get the full phase 3, these vaccines would be under emergency use listing. And so those are some of the mechanisms that we have then put in place, but I can say with confidence that we have done stringent reviews of these. There were then questions around what it is that other applicants have provided that the ones that are still in review have not provided. We did touch on this to indicate that the key aspects in most cases, and I can't discuss every application in detail, we are bound by confidentiality, but I can just speak to this, at general terms. So when it comes to the two aspects really that are causing delays with these applications pertain to the GMP compliance of the respective sites. If there are queries that are outstanding for us, we will not be able to address that. And remember, in the vaccines that we're considering now, being the Russian Sputnik vaccine and the Sinopharm, these are vaccines that are not manufactured in the country. So the applicants then have to engage with their principals to ensure that they are able to get the required information. In some instances, they need to translate, the reports, because as South Africa, we've been, very clear. As SAHPRA, we operate in the English medium of language, and so there are some delays that we encounter in that respect. The other very important area where we do find that there are delays usually is around the clinical data for the variants of concern. And also, I mean, one of the other requirements we've had is that we've said even lab-based data. And so there are instances where applicants don't have that information readily. So they submit and they indicate to us that they will do what we call a rolling review submission. You may have seen in some of the slides, we've indicated that there's certain sequences. And those sequences would speak to, you submit, you provide sequence 1. We review sequence 1, and when you're ready, you provide sequence 2, we would review that. So a lot, again, depends on how ready the applicant is with the information that is required by the authority. And then we would review that and provide them the required feedback. So that's typically, the process that we would follow in terms of this evaluation. I just want to mention, there was a point to say that there's been no engagement with Sputnik. We've got 2 applicants for Sputnik. I can say with confidence that we have engaged with these applicants, and even with, and may his soul rest in peace, the CEO of Lamar, Mr. Jerome Smith, I had engagements with them where we provided them feedback. We were engaging with the responsible pharmacist. I was being copied in the email communication between them and my team. And so there has indeed been discussions and engagements. I just want to reflect then on the, and Prof. Rees in terms of the breakthrough infections, and just to add to that, to say again, in an assessment that we would do for a vaccine, we would always look at the benefit risk. And it's been accepted globally that the benefit of being vaccinated far outweighs the risk. And yes, while there is some risk, we're monitoring that risk through the mechanisms that we've put in place from a safety perspective. The last point that I would like to just reflect on is on the surgical mesh. And I would like to propose here that I come back to the committee on this, and I'm happy to provide a report to the member. My team is indeed looking at this matter. I didn't come prepared to engage with this because we have been talking to the manufacturers of these products, and I know my team is working on it. And so I'm happy to, in the next coming days, share an update or a report on this. But for today, I didn't come prepared to discuss the matter on the surgical mesh. Chair, I think we have covered all the questions. I don't know if my colleagues, Portia and Doslang, have anything to add.
Through you, Chair, nothing, CEO, you have covered everything. Thank you.
Yes, I agree. Everything has been covered. Although I was wondering if the Chair's last anecdotal account of increasing deaths in the rollout has been understood. The coincidence between the rollout of the Pfizer and the age groups that are being exposed to the Pfizer vaccine, and obviously the comorbidities that go with an older age. I trust the Chair has been covered with all the responses from the Chair and the CEO. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Yes, anyone else from your team? If not, thank you very much for your presentation and also the answers to all the questions which were raised with you. I was about to summarize some points which came out of here, but I noticed the hand of Honorable Gela. So before I continue, I need to take that hand. And then 2 more hands, Honorable Munyai and Honorable Dr. Semete. Dr. Semete, the CEO. Thank you. Honorable Gela first, Honorable Munyai next, and then Dr. Semete.
I also raised my hand. I also raised my hand. Please also note me.
All right, I'm going to rearrange that order now. Is that Honorable Sukas?
It's Honorable Chirwa.
Honorable Chirwa, then there is also Honorable Sukas. So I am going to rearrange the order. I just please want us to be mindful of the time. We still have a very long item where we need to approve the documents of the oversight visits. So I'm going to rearrange now. It would be Gela, it would be Munyai, it would be Chirwa, and then Sukers, and then Dr. Semete. Thank you, in that order.
Chairperson, my question was not answered. I've asked a question whether SAHPRA has received any application from Cuba for vaccine registration. Thank you, Chair.
I Dr. Semete will know that in a reply. Honorable Munyai.
No, I wanted to appreciate the response that has been put forward by SAHPRA, and also that the agreement to engage with the scientists of debate in this portfolio. That will be very exciting. And also experts must come and engage here. That's very exciting. But my last comment, Honorable Chair, is that indeed, as esteemed honorable members of Parliament, we have a moral obligation, and it's also a national duty to make sure that really we mobilize and organize our people for vaccination, as I outlined earlier, but also to have a much more strengthened campaign against the the fake news, which is not based on science but voodoo, and also to some degree make sure that we make sure that this mass media campaign by Ministry of Health down to the people, and at least the experience of KwaZulu-Natal, Operation Savaland, of taking vaccine to the people, that will help our country in many respects. Thank you.
Honorable Chirwa.
Sorry, thank you very much, Chairperson. I think in the interest of preserving a cordial engagement, there must at least be an acknowledgement on the developments leading to the surgical mesh issue. I raised it with SAHPRA. The CEO responded and told me that they've never heard or received any grievance regarding surgical mesh. I raised it with the NDOH on 2 occasions. And when they start making amends in fixing the issue that was raised in the portfolio committee, they did not bother to alert or to inform us of what the issue is or how they're going about concessions. So the issue that they will respond to me later, I don't think suffices, especially because the CEO is unable to make a recollection of our historical engagements regarding this issue. It is primarily an important thing because he misled the portfolio committee. This is not a lie. It's even in our minutes as well, and I fought for it to be included in our minutes because I asked them, "Why have you ever received a grievance?" And then she said no, and that's why she can't respond to it, or that SAHPRA can't investigate the issue because they've never received a grievance regarding surgical mesh. Only to note that it's actually been years since they've been engaging on the issue of surgical mesh, and there's been other health regulatory systems in the country. I mean entities in the world that are dealing with the issue of surgical mesh, and our health regulatory entity is beating around the bush regarding this matter. We want to know. I particularly want to know on the background and what prompted gathering all that information, the process that you're now following, and also make a recollection of that first engagement. In the very least, take stock and actually excuse that particular contribution on that particular date. You have misled this portfolio committee and told us that you've never received a grievance when you know you had a 3-year-old grievance in your office regarding surgical mesh, and that there's various other regulatory bodies around the world dealing with this particular issue, and other health ministries around the world dealing with this issue. So this thing of that they'll come back and report to me when they failed to do that, after it's been 3 months already since I raised this issue initially, it cannot suffice. And I'm going to need the chairperson to protect me as a member of this portfolio committee and not allow SAHPRA to be able to bully us when they come to the portfolio committee. It cannot happen. It cannot that you just lie. No, I'm not done. It cannot happen that you can just come to the portfolio committee and lie and then come and tell us, yeah, we are investigating. We'll tell you what's the update. When I've been asking you consistently on this particular issue. Take stock of the fact that you lied, firstly, and then update us. What are these investigations that you're conducting? It's a simple thing.
Thank you, Honorable Chirwa.
I'm not done, Chairperson. I'm almost done. Can you give me just a chance? And I'm also saying on the top of the fact that even Professor Helen Rees is coming here and telling us that the work of SAHPRA is so important because people can use medicines and stuff like that without having a foreign anxiety. That is not the reality. For all these cases of litigation against the NTOH, majority of them are in regards to the kinds of medicine that were used on their bodies. Surgical mesh even included. There's even activism happening in this country, mobilizing and organizing on the issue of surgical mesh. And you've never addressed it. And then today, After we've raised it consistently, you want to tell me that you would give me a report privately outside? No, it cannot work like that. First, apologize that you lied. The other time you came as a CEO of SAHPRA and told me you've never received a grievance regarding surgical mesh, you lied to the Portfolio Committee of Parliament. And then take it from
can
there.
I please intervene and ask you to choose your words properly, please?
They must choose their lies and their truth profile.
We've raised the
Protect
point
me.
on choosing the word lie.
No. Chairperson, you see, we're doing it again. We are
No,
doing it
I'm
again.
asking
You are
you,
not.
really, Honorable
You are
Chairwa,
doing it.
I'm asking you
Okay.
very nicely. Please,
What do we
correct
call it when someone
your
does not
choice
tell
of
the truth?
words.
What do we call it when someone does not tell the truth, Chairperson? Tell me, teach me English. What is it?
All right.
What
Can
is
I
it?
then rule? I'm going to rule on this, Honorable
I
Chairwa.
already know your ruling. I know you protect
No,
SAHPRA and then
my
you want to come
ruling
back and
is
say
that you will
they are
receive a
independent when you
written
cannot
reply,
even
but that
you
same
cannot even
written
protect your own
reply
members. As a chairperson, you
also
can't
be
protect your own
forwarded
portfolio
to the
committee members.
committee.
You can't protect your own portfolio committee members as a chairperson. First day at work, second day at work, you can't protect us. We can't raise our ideas. We can't raise our grievances. You want to silence us and erase us. As a chairperson, are you proud?
Can you give me a moment to speak?
Are you proud? Are you proud of yourself as a chairperson that you are silencing the portfolio committee?
I am not silencing you. I'm asking you to give me a moment to speak. You don't need to speak 1,000 words on one topic. You know, you don't have to repeat the same point over and over. We do understand what you are
I thought
raising.
the interest is the health of people, Chairperson. Did you not say that? People are dying because of surgical mesh.
No,
Is that not what you said?
I'm
Is that
trying
not
to
what you
help
said?
you. Honorable Chirwa, I'm trying to help you by making a proposal on what you've just raised. And I am going to ask that that written reply that is sent to you should also be sent to the Portfolio Committee. And that will allow you to raise this point again. When you get a reply from Dr. Semete, that reply will also be forwarded to our Portfolio Committee. And I was going to make that proposal. Thank you very much. Honorable Soekers.
Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, I just need to clarify, maybe my question was not clear. What I asked, and I will clarify like this before I put the question again. Our people do not, most of our people, especially in our rural areas, will not be reading the issues that was raised or the answer that was given by Professor Helen Rees. What our people do listen to is the experiences of the people that live next to them, the people within their communities. That is what informs their decisions. My question was, should people not be informed that they rather need to test for COVID before they go for a vaccine? The reason being that there are many cases where people took the vaccine and then died within a week or 2 weeks, or became severely ill and hospitalized. Now, I do not know what is, Dr. Rees has now said there will be adverse effects that people would suffer if they do take, if they COVID positive and they get the vaccine. I am not talking about when somebody knows that they COVID positive. I am asking, should it not be that people rather test themselves before they go for a vaccination? And I base the question on the fact that we've had incidences and lived experiences of people not testing for COVID, but going for the vaccine and then falling severely ill or dying. And that is an experience. And we also need to recognize most people are not interested in the mandates of SAHPRA. They're not interested in all of that. They don't even read any of the research or any of newspaper articles even. And we have not done a great job of empowering people to make decisions on their own health. And that is across the board, whether it be government, NDOH, or whether it be other institutions that within their mandate are responsible to inform the public. So that was my question. Then the second thing, what is not clear for the committee, I am certain, is how the CEO now has again emphasized the stringent requirements that was applied before the approval was given. It still does not answer the question for us on AstraZeneca. I have now just failed, Chairperson, to look at what was the efficacy rate that was reported by that small trial that on the Monday was released, that then caused the chaos in the hen coop around AstraZeneca. But we still don't understand if that stringent requirements was then applied. How come that this was purchased and that approval was given for AstraZeneca, and then that the withdrawal, obviously, of AstraZeneca? It's not clear to me then. Let me rather not speak for the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, honorable members. That concludes our part. We will get the responses from Dr. Semete, and then after this, there are a few points coming from this meeting which I want to raise before we ask the members from SAHPRA to then leave our platform. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Actually, I'd raised my hand because I noted the questions that we had omitted to respond to. I'll start with there was a question around whether these vaccines have been authorized for the under 18. Just to say that at this point, they have not been. We have received data from one of the applicants for between 12 years and 17 years of age, and that data is currently under evaluation. So as we speak, all the vaccines are for those who are over 18. The other point I had missed to comment on is on the question around, or the recommendation for us to deliberate with other experts that may have a different view. Again, we're very happy to do so. So if the honorable member can indeed, help us to then schedule that engagement, that would be greatly appreciated. The other point is on Cuba. No, we have not received an application from Cuba. And, just to say that for us as a regulatory authority, we cannot go out and solicit applications. So we only review what has been submitted to us as a regulator. And as of today, we don't have an application from Cuba. In terms of the questions around the AstraZeneca, and I'm not sure which trial the member is referring to, but if you're referring to the trial that indicated a reduced efficacy against the, at the time it was the beta variant. So what had happened is that when we reviewed the data from AstraZeneca at the time, it is when it was still the wild type variant that was circulating. We found out, or the information about the new variant was released, I think it was a week or 2 weeks after we had authorized. And I think it speaks to the nature of the pandemic that we find ourselves in that there's constantly emerging data, and we need to keep abreast on that. And based on the emerging data, as I've indicated, all the applicants would then need to update us on the vaccine efficacy for each of their vaccines against at the time, the prevalent variant of concern. So with the AstraZeneca, the initial authorization was on the wild type. And after we had authorized it, that's when then the news broke in the country through the genomics group that the beta variant at the time was the dominant one. And when they then provided us with that data, that's when, and then a decision, because I think that the efficacy it demonstrated then was around 20%, which is below the threshold of 50. And hence it could then not be made available. And so those are the regular, engagements that we would have with the applicant. Again, just the last comment on the surgical mesh. Again, this was not a matter that was on the agenda. And as I've committed, Chair, we will share the report with the portfolio committee as you had indicated. Thank you. Prof. Rees, I think, wants to come in.
Thank you. Just to pick up, if I may, on Honourable Speaker's comments, I strongly agree with a lot of what you've said, and I want to answer something. The first thing is, I utterly agree with you that the public is not in the least interested in the mandate of SAHPRA. As I say, normally in normal times, a drug regulatory authority should be doing their job and behind the scenes, but as a critical pillar of the health sector. But they shouldn't necessarily be in front, except when it comes to communicating with the public about the safety and effectiveness of medicines. And it's something that SAHPRA is working on, so that when we see that something is unsafe and on the shelf and it's withdrawn, we let people know, or we see that there are bad practices. For example, we've picked up concerns about the use of codeine cough mixture. That sort of thing is what the drug regulator should be front-ending with populations. And I totally agree with you. This is not of all the other stuff is, should be sort of below the line, if you like, and we should get on and do it as a regulatory authority. But I want to also agree with what is being said here, and it's been said in different ways. I don't think we are doing a good job at all in terms of communicating on vaccine safety, on vaccine questions, on the need to get vaccinated. And I think as some of the honourable members have said, the dialogue in chats and so on, and the anecdotes that we're hearing are frightening people. But I would like to say SAHPRA will work absolutely hand in hand with Parliament, but I would also then put this back to Parliament to say, you have constituencies, what can you help us develop a better communication strategy? In my day job, I'm an academic, and even last night I was in dialogue with media experts saying, how do we do this better? So I would actually appeal to you as parliamentarians and representatives of the citizens of this country to say, can you help us with this? Because I think overall we need to do a better job. And in terms of the question that you asked about, is there a need to test? If you have symptoms of COVID, irrespective of vaccine or no vaccine, but if you have symptoms suggestive of COVID, everybody should go and get a test. It's good that you know whether or not you have a COVID infection, because that could influence your future management. But it's important that you know that for the people around you. Are you in contact with elderly people, with vulnerable people, etc.? So if you have symptoms, please get a test. If you've been in very close contact with somebody who has tested positive, please get a test. And what we're saying then is, if you have symptoms, do not get immunized at that time. It is not because I have not seen any cases of associated death because you got immunized at the same time as having COVID infections. I have not seen reported cases of that. And that's talking with a hat on from various WHO committees. But what we are saying is, if you stimulate from two ends, if you like, your immune system, you might well get worse side effects, and the kinds of things that many people experience after some of the vaccines, muscle aches, fatigue, headache, you could get worse side effects if we overstimulate the immune system at a time when you're fighting the infection. So we're not saying that everybody has to get tested. If you're feeling well and you haven't been in contact with anyone with COVID, you can go and get a vaccine very safely. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable members and the delegation from SAHPRA. I'm going to summarize a number of points very shortly. In fact, only in terms of the future engagements which we are going to have. Now, we've understood many of the points raised, but we also understand that there are many questions, many things which do bother the members of this portfolio committee. So we have discussed that we will have a special date for SAHPRA to return to us to answer some of these questions. We will also have the reply to Honorable Chirwa in writing by the CEO, and that same writing will be forwarded to the portfolio committee. We will also have a joint meeting with the Security Cluster Committee with regards to attacks on SAHPRA. We will also have another discussion with a panel of scientists with SAHPRA, with in-depth discussion so that we can understand a bit better how these assessments are made, how the applications are made, and how your authorization is given. I think that will really assist us not to have the same discussion so many times. And it's very imperative that we do understand your processes. We do hear what you're saying, that you shouldn't be so much in the front line. And yes, yet it is a very difficult time with COVID now, epidemic in South Africa, not having something that we had foreseen, but we are now where we are. And we'd appreciate that kind of discussion with yourselves. I'm trying to see if I have missed anything, and then for later, the question on forced sterilizations and the proposal by Honorable Chirwa is something that we will also take forward. And as far as yourselves, the other discussions we will be continuing with. I think these ones are the ones which were raised in this discussion. So thank you very much for coming today, and thank you for your presentation and also for the answers. And we will be in touch with yourselves. Thank you. You are very welcome to leave the platform.
Thank
we have
you
some
very
other things we need to discuss, honorable members.
Honourable Jacobs, thank you very much. On behalf of the SAHPRA board, I'm sure on behalf of Dr. Samete as well, I'm sure we would like to thank you. These engagements are actually extremely helpful. They do give us a sense of what is concerning people on the ground, and we must respond to it. But thank you very much.
It's quite a pleasure. Can we ask the secretary, acting secretary, to just flight our agenda again on the system? We have one more item, members, and that is the oversight reports. We will start with the one to KZN, hopefully, or whichever one is flighted first.
Oops.
Thank you. Just scroll that a bit.
Oh, you can see it. Good.
All right, so the first one on our agenda is the consideration and adoption of the oversight report to KwaZulu-Natal, followed by the consideration and adoption of the oversight report to Gauteng. And then we will have some closing remarks. We have some questions which were raised on the platform by some of the members. Thank you very much. You may flight those reports, and members, it was forwarded to all of us. And I hope we would have taken the time to read through it so that we can really go very quickly through these reports. There are quite a number of pages, so I'm going to be going through this very fast.
Chair, are we starting with the Gauteng report?
Yes, yes, doesn't matter. Let's start with Gauteng. You're not able to flight it.
I thought I was sharing it. Okay. I thought I was sharing it, sorry.
It wasn't opening, or maybe you needed to click on it again.
Can you see it now? Because on my...
Yes, thank you. We can.
Oh, perfect.
All right, members, there is the report of the Portfolio Committee on Health. This was compiled by the members, the staff who were accompanying the members to the oversight in the different provinces. I think if you can scroll, so initially the purpose of the visit, we understand that this had to do with, just stop right there, as a result of the riots and the unrest, and we wanted to ascertain for ourselves what the challenges were post the unrest period, and also to get an idea of the vaccination programs at various facilities. You would note that we had 5 members doing the oversight visit to Gauteng. Those are the 2 members from the parliament officials who accompanied the members. Hold on, it's Ms. Mori and Mr. Dodo. And then the sites visited were Ekurhuleni, Tembisa Hospital, Houghton Drive, Alexandra Community, CHC. You can continue, those who were just the staff members who interacted with the members. You can continue. I think these just simply explain what services they provide at Tembisa Hospital. And then the challenges are quite important that Dr. Mtunzi reported on the general challenges that the hospital faces on a daily basis. And here they spoke about the vaccination sites, the progress, the challenges with regards to infrastructure, human resources, equipment. And these seem to be general challenges which are raised at all of the facilities. There are common challenges, and those are the common challenges. And then onto the vaccination site. They mentioned that the staff members who were vaccinated under the Sisonke vaccination program, you may go faster, and then this is just the times of operation and challenges, just hold on right there. So again, also in terms of the vaccination drive, there's a challenge with staff shortages, increase in demand of vaccination in the catchment area, meaning we're beginning to see, and I see what the department calls a lack of arms for vaccination. Initially, there was a supply problem, and now we have a demand generation challenge in that we do not have enough people coming forward for the vaccinations, and this is what this speaks to. Please continue. Committee's observations, just hold on a bit. We need to just note that the committee raised the issue of lack of funding and essential resources and how this hinders on the hospital's ability to perform optimally. Also mentioned the negative publicity, which damages the image of the hospital and the community members. Continue. We commended them for taking the recommendations of the health ombudsman forward. And yeah, so if you had read through this, so generally this is what the committee is saying, how we've noted their concerns, but we also expressed our own concerns. Continue.
Honorable Chair.
Yes, Honorable Munyai.
There's issue of the infrastructure, healthcare infrastructure to expand within.
All right. You want me to go back a bit there? Please scroll back.
All I'm just saying that if those issues are covered, no problem.
Yes, I've mentioned that.
And the cleanliness of the hospital need to be improved, please.
All right. I think, Honorable Munya, you were particularly on this one. If there's anything, are those the only two you want to mention?
Yes, my Honorable Chair.
You're very welcome. All right. Please continue. So members, you would have noted the challenges, and continue. If you want to engage, we can engage on the challenges which are experienced or any other matters pertaining to this report. And the rest are about the same, unless there are particular points you want to actually raise. Continue. They also noticed that the number, just hold on please, that at that point in time, the vaccination for those between the ages of 18 and 34 were just opened, and that there was quite a big interest by the youth, and also in the numbers who attended the vaccination sites at that period in time. Continue. Right, just there. So always, if you can stop at the committee recommendations, it was concerned about the infrastructure of the center. There was a recommendation to repaint the vaccination area and ensure better hygiene. there was a recommendation by the committee that the resuscitation area should be more private to protect the dignity of patients. And there was a concern about the lack of choice that the community members were given regarding the vaccine they preferred. We do note that members are asked, of the community are asked which vaccine they would prefer. Honorable Munyai.
All I'm saying, those ones that are there in Alexander, it is quite honest and truthful. But also on Tembisa, we recommend the reopening of the Kempton Park Hospital to ease pressure from Tembisa Hospital. And we further recommended that there should be also additional regional hospital, because we have noticed that Tembisa Hospital services the 3 metros. The Metro of Johannesburg with the population of Diepsloot, City of Tshwane, and also City of Ekurhuleni.
Thank you, Honorable Munyai. Please scroll. There was a meeting with the Health MEC of Gauteng. Maybe even here, Honorable Munyai, since I was not present, would like to mention anything in particular.
No, all the concern, I'm so Honorable Van Staden, Honorable Chirwa, and Honorable Gela and Dr. Harvard may have make some addition. But I can say that all the concern that we have experienced, be it Alexander, be it all other areas we visited in Gauteng, were raised with the MEC, and it was advised that raising those issues within the institution is not personal. They must require practical and urgent intervention.
Thank you. Can you scroll, and I will give the members an opportunity, because we just need to first go through the documents itself, and then if you think there are any additions or omissions, then we can just hold on there. So those are the concerns and recommendations which are made by the Portfolio Committee to the MEC, which the Honorable Munyai was talking about. You can scroll, honorable members, please note, so that you'll be able to engage with this. You can go, and I'm sure you would have read it. And that's the conclusion on the meeting with the MEC. The MEC was advised to provide a detailed report to the committee's concerns and recommendations. I will ask the secretary to inform us whether we had received such a report, and that we should write to the MEC again to request this report if we had not received it, and on the various points which were raised by the committee. So honorable members, you are very welcome. I heard the voice of Honorable Van Staden somewhere in the background. You're all very welcome to engage with the report, and please inform us where you think corrections need to be made.
Thank you, Chairperson. If I may, under the conclusion, I think we must just put in there that Member Munyai is very correct what they have said, but we have also asked the MEC on the Tembisa Hospital for a full report on the Tembisa Hospital from her side, as well as on the Kempton Park Hospital on what the reasons were for the closure of the hospital, how many equipment is still in the hospital, and so forth and so forth. So I think we must just put in by conclusion that we have asked this committee for a report from the MEC of Health of Gauteng, a report regarding Tembisa Hospital and Kempton Park Hospital. And then also I just want to state, Chairperson, I've mentioned also in that meeting, and Munyai can confirm that on the 23rd of August, that while we was visiting the MEC on the 11th of June regarding Charlotte Maseki and the Kopanong Hospital, I said in that meeting on the 23rd of August that we have not received that report. She said that she had sent it to Mr. Dodo, who was with us on the visit of the 23rd of August. But the really, Chair, I still haven't received anything. If that report of Charlotte Maseki and Kopanong Hospital, which was promised to us on the 11th of June, or was sent to us indeed, must be just sent to us as members as well, please. But don't have to be put in the conclusions. All what we need to put in the conclusions is the report that we need from Tembisa Hospital and the Kempton Park Hospital. The other was just for information that I said that we as members have still not received it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members?
I'm okay with what Honorable Van Staden raised.
Yes, if our secretary and assistants would just note the points which were raised, and also the fact that I requested that they look specifically for these reports, and then if we had not received it, that we write a letter requesting these reports. Honorable members, can we therefore adopt this report? I am looking for anyone to move for the adoption of this report there weren't really amendments, no.
Chairperson.
Yes, Honorable Gela. Honorable Gela. Can anyone, Honorable Gela seems to have challenges with connectivity. Is there anyone who would consider to move for adoption of this report, please?
With amendments, Chair.
With amendments, okay. And the amendments, we need to make certain that they will be captured. Yes, thank you very much. Are you moving, Honorable Van Staden?
I'm moving with amendments, yes, Chair. But just yeah, what Honorable Munyai.
Okay, can one of you speak?
Can we just hear what Member Munyai is saying, and after that I will move with the amendments, please.
I support Honorable Member Van Staden for having moved with the amendment, because there have to be that amendment. What Honorable Van Staden said, it's a concrete request he formally made in that meeting.
Thank you, Chair.
Chairperson.
Yes.
Can you hear me, Chairperson?
I can hear you, Honorable Gela.
My apology, I'm having a network connection problem, but I think the report is a true reflection of our visit. And I want to also second Honorable Munyai and Honorable Philip, but also just to check, have you received any report so far since our last visit? And also if the report can be forwarded to us as members. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, honorable members. So the report is duly adopted, moved for adoption by Honorable Van Staden and seconded by Honorable Munyai, and then with strengthening of that request for the report to be found and to be forwarded to the members. And if not, if we don't have it, that we will request it. Thank you very much. We will go to the report on the KZN oversight visit.
Can you see it, Chairperson?
Not yet.
Not
Just
yet.
click on there, click on there.
Is it visible now?
Yes, it is. Thank you. This one, I was part of this oversight visit, so I'll be able to go through this a bit faster. So we had an oversight visit. You may continue the same purpose of the visit. It was as a result of the recent riots, and we wanted to hold on there, please. We wanted, hold on, just scroll back a little bit. And we needed to ascertain the extent of the damage and the challenges with regards to the unrest, and also to familiarize ourselves with the vaccine rollout in the province. We visited 2 districts, which was the Umgungundlovu district and the eThekwini district. We visited 5 facilities in total, of which one was a psychiatric facility or psychiatric hospital, which is the Ekuhlengeni Psychiatric Hospital in eThekwini, and also the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Hospital, which serves both as a district and regional hospital. And in the Umgungundlovu district, we had visited 3 facilities, of which one was a regional hospital. All right, those were the staff members, and then we had an idea of the services which they provide. And then we will look at the challenges. Just go back a bit. I think this is the first CHC, am I right? Need to see your heading. Yes, the Imbalenhle Community Health Center. Continue. We need to get to the challenges, especially. You can scroll to where you were with challenges and recommendations. What we did note that this is a huge facility, a very clean facility. It seems to be very well managed. We were very impressed with the management of this facility. And the challenges were a shortage of storage areas at the CHC, a shortage of parking space. It's using a borrowed HST bus and gazebos as flu clinics. And they didn't have enough waiting areas, and also, of course, the shortage of staff members. You can control 12 staff members tested COVID positive, 2 in isolation, and 7 are fully recovered. They mentioned specifically the challenge with anti-vaccine fake news and how it was affecting the rollout of the vaccine program. You can continue. Related to the unrest was the functionality of the facilities was compromised and the vaccination numbers dropped. 2 vehicles of the facility were damaged, and that it was in the process of being repaired. Continue to committee observations. Committee was provided with a short tour. We made the following general observations: security to the entrance within the facility, sanitizer stations were present, COVID regulations were being observed, the designated registration site of flu clinics were working efficiently. We saw the tent as a measure of alleviation of the problems, a vaccination site with efficiently functioning vaccination stations, an observation area, and that again, it's mentioned that the CHC was impeccably clean. Please scroll. At Grace Hospital, one of the oldest hospitals, which I still mentioned was one of the hospitals sought after for interns. Don't go too fast. Yes, stop at challenges which were used. Interns really wanted to rotate medical interns at this hospital. The vaccination site manager reported the following: 110 staff members tested positive for COVID-19 during the 3rd wave. 80 have recovered, 30 were still in active isolation. And that healthcare worker vaccine, COVID-19 vaccine registration was being abused, and so it was discontinued. And then again, the challenge with fake news and what is perpetuated by members of the public. And that's where I raise that we also need to be mindful what we say, in that we need to really get our people to be vaccinated. It's the only way forward for us. So it comes up repetitively at all of the facilities. Continuous staff shortages. They were doing well at 800 vaccines administered a day. We raised the point of the resuscitation area needed to be more private in case there needed to be an active resuscitation performed. And then there was a problem with vaccine shortages at that time because of the unrest. And continue. Is this the next? Yes. And now the only hospital that we really had a challenge was Northdale Hospital, where we realized that this hospital is in need of financial support and upgrading. It's an old building. It serves a very large community, diverse community, and that the hospital, that there was a plan approved for improvements to the hospital, and I think with new wards, for example. but that it has never been followed through up to now, and it's been a number of years, I think about 10 years. So if we can continue, and the challenges were the same of staff, high staff turnover, they cannot retain their staff, scroll back a bit. And no career pathing, no rural and danger allowance at that particular hospital. I mentioned the old buildings, the poor ventilation, and the spacing norms for COVID-19 wards were not met. Promises of developing and building new wards I've mentioned. So generally, this is the hospital that we noticed really needed attention, and we had discussed this with the MEC, and she had given us a commitment that they were going to look into supporting this hospital and taking these things, these proposals forward. You may continue. This is in the eThekwini district. This is the meeting with the MEC. Those are the officials who were present. We had a presentation by the MEC. They've mentioned the challenge of understaffing, result of the cost-cutting measures, which started even prior to COVID-19. And the biggest challenge is the lack of funding by the Department of Health. They have a lack of adequate infrastructure, again, the fake news and the unrest. With regards to the unrest, it's created a backlog in the COVID-19 vaccination drive at that point in time, and that in terms of vandalized and damaged infrastructure at eKwaZulu-Natal Hospital, the flu clinic tent at Cramond Clinic was burned, Newtown, ACHC and Arigwala district offices were also suffered, and then there was stolen and damaged equipment, especially at the psychiatric hospital, which we had seen for ourselves, and loss of important files and information, and limited staff reported to work at the health facilities during the period of the unrest. High volumes of trauma patients at certain hospitals and CHCs, and threats to healthcare facilities included lack of public transport, threats to the staff, bulk oxygen supply was a challenge because AFROS could not release bulk trucks due to security risks. Us understanding that these, if attacked, could cause huge explosions. There was a supply of linen problem, a mortuary problem. Postmortems had to be postponed at some facilities. And then ambulance and other state vehicles were burnt. Please continue. These are our concerns. We raised our concerns with the MEC, especially with regards to the Northdale hospitals and all of the points which were raised above, which I just alluded to. Please continue to the psychiatric hospital. We were quite impressed with the psychiatric hospital. They have 800 patients. And the challenge is that they feel that they cannot, at this point in time, those patients cannot be sent back home, for example, and many are without family members, etc. But that there was a break-in at the hospital, and people, it's almost like it was a targeted break-in and entry, and in particular equipment. And here we're talking about audio-visual equipment and electronic equipment was stolen. Continue. So in terms of the district itself, the following challenges: slow registration and vaccine uptake, vaccine hesitancy is a challenge. Competition for resources between the COVID-19 epidemic response and vaccination components of the program, and limited financial resources, which results in the inability to appoint more staff members, and crime and co-hijackings are a threat to the program. This is with regards to the vaccine program. Continue. You can continue. Achievements, it has a vaccination site at that particular psychiatric hospital, which is well managed and separate from the patients who are housed at the facility. And we asked specifically about injuries to any of the staff or the patients. None were attacked or injured during that time of the unrest. Please continue. You can continue. You can continue. I've raised this. And then Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Hospital was the last hospital that we attended. Continue. And they, as I said, serve as both a district / regional hospital because they provide services which are normally based at a regional hospital. Continue with medical wards, surgical wards, theaters. Continue. I think the only one they said they don't have is orthopedic services. Only department they do not have. And the current situation is that they had a challenge during the unrest with staff not being able to access their work place, and they asked us to, in particular, look at the building of more staff residences. The reason that this is a great contingency strategy to best deal with situations such as the unrest, and I reminded them of the time when I was working in hospital, how easy it was to access your work, for us being able to live within the staff residences, and there does seem to be a challenge that this is not much the norm anymore. Continue. Recommendations, there's a need for better support for the management staff at the Northdale Hospital. These are all our recommendations in general. There needs to be investment in essential resources such as staff, medical equipment, infrastructure at hospitals. They must address the staff shortages and infrastructure maintenance issues, especially in terms of the nurses and doctors who are unemployed, that they need to be taken up into the system. And there needs to be a huge effort on mass media campaign to eliminate fake news and doubts within community members with regards to the vaccine uptake. We need a program to make use of radio broadcast, TV, local newspapers, and other instruments to educate communities. And I think this will take us later to the point of what the NDOH's drive will be with regards to community awareness programs. Continue. And that is the report. Any input, Honorable Munyai and Fatstaden were there with me.
I think the report is a true reflection, Chairperson. I would move that we adopt the report as is.
Thank you very much. Honorable Munyai to second.
Comrade Chair, my apology, Chair. Can I second the approval of the report as tabled before us?
I guess you can second the report, yes. Honorable Gela, the acceptance of the report. Thank you very much. So, honorable members, we have now completed that part of our work in terms of our agenda. That is all we were going to discuss today. I've had
Chairperson.
Yes, Honorable Gela.
Can I make a request that we need also to go and do oversight in other provinces? I know that as a new portfolio chairperson will do that. Remember, previously when it was still Dr. Zomo as our chair, we said we are also going to Northwest and also in other parts of our country and in Limpopo. If maybe we can also consider if we can have a sense of vaccine rollout in all provinces, how far they are currently, and also just to motivate and also check the issue of communication. I know that even previously in our portfolio committee, just last week, where we got that report, Limpopo is doing very well in terms of that. But we need also as portfolio committee and go and check on our own. That would be my proposal, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Gela. We note it. So I'm going to mention a few things which we which were raised today. I think they're actually only the two, apart from the ones which were raised already with SAHPRA as work we need to do. But then I also need to speak upon two other points. The one is now what Honorable Gellert raised about oversight to other provinces. The second one is a proposal that we must meet with the Minister and the NDOH. We know that we have a 2-weekly arrangement with them, and we will follow that up, and we will come back to you. The third item is on the minutes, which previous minutes, which we had decided not to then bring today because Ms. Majalamba is not well, and she needed to be present in that meeting as she had put those minutes together. And then the next one is on our program going forward. There is a tentative program, and that program is really already full because we must also be mindful that we are still busy with the oral representations on the NHI bill, which with the chairperson becoming the deputy minister, that it's been put on hold for a little while, and we need to get back to that program, also understanding that Parliament has now restarted, and we are also quite busy in that regard. Honorable van Staden, do you want to say something now before I complete what I am about to say?
Chairperson, there's just one other outstanding matter that we have discussed on the meeting of the 4th of August, and the minutes was approved on the 18th of August. Can I bring it up now, or do you want to finish first?
No, bring it up now.
Okay, all right. Now, on the meeting on the 4th of August, there was, on the SIU report on digital vibes, there was 3 resolutions taken by this committee. I just want to remind you about the last one. I think we mustn't forget about this resolution, and that was that the chairperson at that time should also have write a letter to the speaker asking her to request the president to send the report to Parliament so that it can be shared with the committee, and the response from the speaker must also be shared with the committee. The responses will then guide the committee on when it can schedule a meeting with the SIU. When they just thereafter the cabinet were reshuffled and the chairperson were appointed as the deputy minister and so forth. So I just want to remind you, chairperson, that this matter must still need attention as approved on the minutes of the 4th of August 2021. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We will certainly, we're putting it down as some of our points we need to attend to. The very last point I want to raise is that we have a tentative report. I must still apply my mind to this program. And it is really already full, considering the fact that we do have plenaries and sittings in between, and that the times allocated or the times when we are not having sittings are very few and far between, but we need to be able to address the other challenges. I'm not going to send this out yet until I'm hoping to really sit with this today and with the secretary, and I hope she'll be better by tomorrow so that we can finalize this program. But just to give an indication that we have the quarterly reports by the Department of Health, which must be brought to us very soon, and tentatively the 8th of September was put down for it. Then a briefing by the Department of Health on those quarterly reports on the 15th of September. You can note the dates, but it might just change here and there very slightly. Then there was a request by Dr. James of the World Health Organization to have a briefing with the Portfolio Committee. I do not know at this point in time exactly what it is all about. And then we have public hearings, NHI public hearings, 22nd, 29th of October, etc. Honorable members, I want to ask your indulgence, as the previous chairperson had done, for us to consider having a few hours on Tuesdays and on Fridays to do these NHI public hearings. Looking at the program that is before me now, we wouldn't have any other option but to to try and continue with the work where it was left off. So I'm actually asking your support for that. Any comments? Honorable Van Staden?
Just a question. How many entities must still come and appear before us, which was registered on the list? I presume it's still a lot.
Yes, well, we're starting with the Auditor General, then we're going to the Financial and Fiscal Commission, then the Medical Research Council, the Office of Health Standard Compliance, the Compensation Commissioner, SAHPRA again, the NHLS, the Council for Medical Schemes, and so it goes on. And then very importantly, so that we are not late again, is the consideration and adoption of the committee's budgetary review and recommendations report, the BRRR.
Okay,
So
so
there's
it's still,
quite a lot of work ahead.
yeah, still a lot of work to do. And it's what Member Gela was also saying. Remember, we was also talking, I want to support her. We were discussing the matter around for other provinces, which we still also need to visit. So we must also work that into a program. So therefore, yeah, I would support your view. Or you say on Thursday and Fridays, Honorable Chairperson.
Tuesdays, bit of Tuesdays and a bit of Fridays, and we'll see how it doesn't interfere with the other work of the committee and the members of the committee.
As long as it's not on Mondays or constituency days, but then I think we don't have a choice but to do it like that then.
Thank you, Honorable Van Staden.
Chairperson.
Honorable Gela?
Yes, I also want to support your proposal to say that let's proceed with the NHI public hearing Tuesday and Friday. I'm also supporting Honorable Philip on that one. Let's move on. We still have a lot to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Gela. Any other members who want to raise anything on this point? Because that's a very last point. I appreciate you. We appreciate the committee, your support for this.
Can I make a suggestion, Chairperson?
Yes, Honorable Van Staden.
Can the committee secretary just draw up a draft program with all these dates already in it, together with proposed dates for visits and so forth and so forth, and then at the next meeting we can see for our own eyes how constrained the program will look for the next few months, and then we can take a final decision at that meeting if it is fine with you.
Yes, it is fine. She's already drawn up, but as you know, I've only been in this position for 2 days, and I wanted to also apply my mind to these dates and to bring this request also to you today, so that we can also populate that. And now she's also not well, so as soon as she's able to, and I'm going to do this as speedily as possible, we'll discuss between the two of herself and myself, and we'll bring the full list to yourselves. Thank you. All right, thank you very much.
Chairperson.
Honorable Gela?
Yes, I also want to wish Ms. Majalambe a speedy recovery. As you indicated that she's not well.
Thank you. All right, honorable members, if there is nothing else, which I don't think there is, we're then about to close our meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance today. And the meeting is then adjourned.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Recording stopped.